Tim Hass, the founder of General Provision and the Trim Agency from Fat Village, has this quote that I always like to reference, that the only way that we're going to build a creative community here in Fort Lauderdale is to show up to other people's stuff. We don't live in silos, so as evident by you guys showing up, you're taking a great first step to do that. So I really, really genuinely appreciate it on a Monday night that you guys are here. It documents the economic impact of the nonprofit arts and cultural industry. It was conducted by Americans for the Arts, the nation's nonprofit organization for advancing arts in America. And Broward County was one of 341 study regions across the country. The Arts and Economic Prosperity 5 is the most comprehensive economic impact study of the nonprofit arts and culture industry ever conducted. This study provides compelling evidence that the nonprofit arts and culture sector is a $414 million industry in Broward County alone. This industry supports 11,078 full-time equivalent jobs and generates $40 million in revenue for local and state governments. They spent $148 million in 2015, leveraging $265 million in additional spending by their audiences, spending that pumps vital revenue into restaurants, hotels, retail stores, parking garages, and other local business. To give you guys some perspective, does anybody want to take a guess at how much money Miami-Dade County generates for their local economy for the 1 week of Art Basel and Miami Art Week? It's $100 million? It's $550 million.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit more than Ultra contributes about $350 million to their economy, which is a little less than the boat show contributes $837 million to our economy. But we're doing $414 million for the year, as evidenced by this AEP5 report. So imagine if we can all get together behind the arts, if it's for 1 week, if it's for the whole year, what that impact could be that could literally change people's lives, literally help businesses stay in business or prevent them from going out of business. If we had an influx of 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people flock to Fort Lauderdale for 1 week of art, maybe a year of art, it could literally, so this is a pretty big, grandiose conversation that plays into a lot of different elements we're going to get into. Most notably, the one that Andrew and I refer to the most is attracting and retaining talent. People want to move here, but we haven't always been the best at retaining talent. And it's a very competitive landscape, and we're going to get into that. I'd like to introduce our panelists. First, we have Commissioner Steve Glassman from District 2, former Broward County Cultural Division Administrator, whose efforts contributed not only to arts education, but creation of 4 arts parks, as well as Sable Bend Artist Law. We have Jody Tanner, who is the founder and creator of Los Olas Capital Arts, who also serves as the Broward County Cultural Chair, which is the citizens liaisoning arm of the Broward County Cultural Division. The Cultural Division is the county's arm for art. We're very glad to have Representative Jim Shermer from the Cultural Division here, and appreciate all the support from the Cultural Division. And last but not least, we have my partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau, who is the co-founder of Art Fort Lauderdale, Choose 954, Fort Lauderdale Art Design Week, Zero Empty Spaces, AAF Creative Zen, Behind the Thousand Mermaids Project, and he's also president of the American Advertising Federation chapter of Greater Fort Lauderdale and the Palm Beaches, as well as the founder of the UniteUs Group. So he has a little bit of experience in the arts, and if you weren't sure who I am, my name is Evan Snow. I'm Andrew's partner in Choose 954, Art Fort Lauderdale Art and Design Week, Zero Empty Spaces, Creative Zen, Thousand Mermaids, and all the other things that we're doing to move the needle forward here in Fort Lauderdale, in Broward County, where I'm born and raised from, in an effort to make this a better place to live, and not just a better place to vacation. So do you guys all feel you're in the right place? You feel we know what we're talking about? Okay. So, without much further ado, we're going to get into some of these questions here. We're going to start off with Commissioner Glassman. Why is it important for the community to understand how arts and culture affect their work-life balance and overall quality of life? And basically, why would anyone want to live somewhere where there's nothing to do but go to work and then go home and go to sleep?
Exactly.
First of all, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Evan. Thanks everyone for being here. It's a pleasure to be here. When Evan first mentioned this event, I said, yeah, that sounds great. I would love to participate. Just so I don't have to bore you by speaking about it, a little sheet went out. Thank you to the team for passing this out. Just so you have a little bit of information about me and some of the things that the city is doing in case we don't get to that later in the discussion. You know, it wasn't that long ago when people thought of Fort Lauderdale as really a cultural wasteland. When I first moved here, that's what I would hear from all of my friends. What's there to do there? What's there to do there? You know, it wasn't that long ago that there was nothing where you now see the Broward Center for the Performing Arts, the Arts and Entertainment District, Museum of Discovery and Science. And a lot of that was done because of people that were very creative and thought outside the box and said, if we're going to have a dynamic city, exactly what you said, you just can't go to work and go home and go to sleep. There have to be reasons for people to be excited to be here. And as a tourism economy, it certainly makes sense to do all of that. You know, one of the things that I'm so disappointed in, years ago, we actually had as part of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, a cultural tourism director. I've had those conversations recently again with the CDB because I think it's so important that we actually have that discussion, have that someone pushing that kind of activity from the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I think there's some information in the handout. Some of it also is mirrored what Evan said, but just so you understand, it's very proven that the person that goes to a city as a cultural tourist spends a lot more money and is a lot more involved than a person that goes to a city just to sit on the beach and really do nothing else. So as you said, it's all about attracting the right people, but it's also about retaining the folks that grow up here. One of the things that I first started doing when I joined the Cultural Division back in 1998 was I was working on all of the arts education projects. Because I really think that's where it begins, not just in the city, but everywhere else. The children need to be exposed to the arts. Arts education is paramount in developing a well-rounded student. Not only that, it's paramount in reaching a student that might not otherwise be engaged. The research is very clear, the data is very clear. We have to make sure that on a local level, the schools are stressing the importance of the arts, because that's how the children grow up, that's how they're exposed, that's how they participate. One of the things that I used to like to do when I was an arts education specialist is make sure that the arts were not just taught for art's sake, but also integrated throughout the curriculum. That's what makes a dynamic curriculum. When you can get the arts teachers working together with the academic teachers and infusing the arts into science classes, math classes, and there are perfect connections that make sense every day, that's when you really see a kid's eyes start to sparkle because they get it. You get them up out of that chair. I've seen amazing science classes where a dance teacher came in and worked with the science teacher, and the kids actually designed costumes for the different planets that they would be on. They learned about rotating and revolving around the sun, but they actually physically did it, they danced it. It was great to see that kind of connection. Those are the kinds of things that we have to make sure that our children have the opportunity to do, and then that just keeps going. You know, we have a lot of really talented young people here, and we have to make sure that they stay. I will say that probably, and I'm not being, well, yes, I am being prejudiced, but District 2 in the city of Fort Lauderdale is the best district in the city of Fort Lauderdale. Yes, it is. So I'm very proud of that. I will say that my district is probably the most creative, the most diverse, and is where all of the excitement is happening in Fort Lauderdale. So I get very protective of that. I try not to let my colleagues on the commission know much about what's going on because I don't want them to steal any of the information that's happening. But seriously, it's a great place. I can go on and on. I don't even know if I hit the subject, but did I? I don't know. I'm very passionate about this, as you can see. What I try to do in my work every day as a city commissioner, and please understand, I was retired for 10 years, so this is very interesting coming back into the work world in this capacity. But I'm so pleased to be able to bring an arts perspective to the City Commission, because quite frankly, for all of the years I've been watching the City Commission, and it's been over 20, I've really never noticed an emphasis or even a discussion of the arts. Right now I'm working very hard to establish an Arts and Cultural Advisory Board in the city, as well as a public art ordinance in the city. These are two missions of mine in the near future that I'm really hoping to be able to do so that we can really start to look at our city as a place that really endorses the creative economy, arts and culture, and we get it, we put it all together. I'll shut up now.
You hit on
That's
all the points. Jody, do you have anything you'd like to add? Why it's important for the community to understand how arts and culture affect their work-life balance and overall quality of life?
Well, I mean, we could go into the creative economy kind of thing, but I just think, we talked about this the other day too. The balance of your life, your work, your play, the arts is, it's very important for the people who live here, the residents, the tourism is hugely important. We want people to come here to Fort Lauderdale, to Broward County as a destination, not only just because it's beautiful, but because we have something really fantastic in the creative arts. I know a lot of you in the room, it's fantastic. I just want to say thank you again also for being here because I'm in great company here, and I think these gentlemen are fantastic, and I'm so happy to be sitting in the same presence of you. But all of you guys are here for a reason. It's because you have the same choices. You want to do the same thing with your community. You want to enjoy the same things that we have, that we can offer to everyone out there. So I think it's important on the local level, the county level, the city level, the state level, our country level, to be very, very engaged in the arts. And you hit upon arts education. I think, you've got that aspect of it. You've got the teachers. I'm on the Broward Cultural Council, and one of our committees is the arts education. We take great strides in trying to celebrate the teaching artists, teachers out there, because that's where it's beginning. The creative economy begins with a teacher teaching students art, and then moving on from there. I mean, supplies, everything. So you've got your teachers, and you've got the people like you guys who are, going to events. A lot of you in here are creative artists yourself, and I know, yeah, right. So you are creating the arts. So we need everybody. We need people to visit the arts. We need people to support the arts. We need the financing for the arts. We need to raise funds to the state, the county, city, the local levels for the arts. And I just think that this is a kind of room. This room is where everyone does come together and collaborates to make these things happen that we need here in Broward County for the betterment of everyone.
Andrew, how do you explain the creative economy for those not familiar with the conversation, and specifically, who contributes to the creative economy?
Part of the creative economy conversation is, the major economy for a very long time was manufacturing, which, as many of us know, a lot of the manufacturing has gone overseas because it's a lot cheaper to manufacture things overseas. And that's kind of been replaced with the knowledge economy and the creative economy, which is essentially made up of people that, are pretty much selling their ideas. And ideas are the things that are really kind of like moving a lot of the major economies in the country forward, whether it's Silicon Valley or Nashville or Austin. A lot of these cities are made up of a really great cluster of creative people. And those are really the flourishing cities and the cities of the future where they're working with other industries that might have been kind of mature industries and working on ideating new ideas to move those things forward. So I feel that there's an opportunity here, obviously, in Florida. At one point, probably about 15 years ago, we were kind of one of the leaders in the creative economy conversation, which Richard Ford was leading. And we were actually sending people across the state, really talking to other cities about the creative economy. I think one great thing that came out of that is the Artist as an Entrepreneur program, which is over at the Broward Cultural Division, which, in my opinion, has been one of the major things that I think the Cultural Division has done over the years that's been consistent and has really kind of helped a lot of artists kind of move things forward. And also with the establishment of the Fat Village area, it's Doug McGraw over there that started that. And it's kind of been a basis for kind of like having that dialogue between the artists and having a place for the artists to go and expand and collaborate and network. So it's super important for us as a community to encourage more of the creative economy to exist here in this city, because it's really going to be the way that we're going to be able to compete on a national level with other cities. So corporations are looking to move to cities with bigger groupings of creative people. And those cities, Miami is obviously doing a really good job at it, but those cities are really the cities that are becoming the ones that are attracting and retaining talent, and they're doing that with the creative and arts and culture community. So,
when we say attracting and retaining talent, does everybody know what we mean by that, more or less? So talent refers to skilled workers, anywhere from an engineer to a designer to a developer. We're very good at, once again, attracting, but one of the things that Andrew speaks to from his experience with the Advertising Federation is if we don't have major multinational, international corporations to employ these folks that pay the wages, that pay the benefits, that pay the things that they find in other markets and other cities, people go elsewhere. One of the most notable impacts that we've unfortunately felt, nobody's fault in this room, is the film industry has left Florida. The film industry has gone to Georgia and it's gone other places.
But I will say, if we were active in that respect, we would be able to capitalize now, because right now the film industry is very upset with the abortion laws being passed in Georgia, but yet we're not picking up the pieces. We could be capitalizing on the loss of the film industry in Georgia if we were organized, if we were ready to step in. We could capitalize on that in a big way. I did want to just add one thing though about when you talk about what is the creative economy and who's involved in that. You know, it definitely did start out, and it made sense with the creative industries. But I think we always can't overlook the importance of just that creative person that might be out there in the business world or somewhere else. We need to look outside of just the creative and the arts and the cultural industries, because you could have a person sitting in a job somewhere, and if they are a creative person, they can also bring that creative look, that creative economy to that business. You know, we have a business for the arts group in Broward County. That's a perfect way to liaison. So I would say that artists need to sometimes just think outside the box, just as I was asking other people, think outside the box, and work with those kinds of people that might not be, first in your mind. We have meetings sometimes at the city commission, and I'll always say, like if we're talking about wayfinding, we're talking about signage, or the other day, a couple of weeks ago, we had FTL in to talk about, undergrounding and why our lights aren't always on and things like that. And I often will say, do you work with an artist? You're complaining about the transformer boxes because they're ugly and they're utilitarian. Why aren't you working with an artist? Why aren't we working with an artist to do, signage in the city? So I think that as long as we keep pushing those kinds of discussions, we can also impact people that might not necessarily be thought of as the creative economy, but we can maybe get them in.
I just wanted to add, you're talking about the creative economy, it's just so important to realize that we need space to create. We need spaces like this is a creating space. We need places like Doug's doing at Fat Village. We need places like Zero Empty Spaces. We need places in Broward County, state, wherever that are locations that's affordable for artists, it's affordability for people to collaborate, there's a marketing aspect to it. Art Serve is one of our jewels in the community that is an arts hub that's a creative space. It gives opportunities for the marketing, it gives creative. You can have exhibit space there. You can have events there that if you're not an artist. So, I think it's really important that for all of us to, if you see people who have a space that can possibly be part of the creative economy, then to offer it up. It behooves all of us to really collaborate in that area, because that's kind of what we need. Because not everyone starts off as selling huge pieces and paying their rent. So we need to have affordability as a huge aspect of this. So I think we're on the edge, we're working it, and I think a lot of people in this room are doing the same thing for the same reasons.
How many of you, just show of hands, have been to Art Serve before? Okay, pretty good. How many of you know what Art Serve offers? So Art Serve is a great resource for not only artists and creatives, but actually arts appreciators. They do over 1,000 events a year, I believe. Anything from jazz to dance to comedy to open mic to art shows. They have a brand new director. They have a brand new curator. They have a great team. They also have something called the Cooperative Marketing Program, where they're able to offer subsidized marketing to cultural initiatives that the county will pay a percentage of your marketing with major media, anywhere from the Sun Sentinel to New Times to even to Choose 954. So if you haven't, I'm glad you mentioned that. I encourage you to look at Art Serve. I'm gonna just read through the term, the creative economy, in 2001. It applies to arts, cultural goods, services, toys and games, and research and development. The most common models of the creative economy share many elements. The creativity-based model includes all kinds of creativity, whether expressed in art or innovation. The narrower culture-based models concentrate on arts, designs, media, and are normally restricted to nominated industries. The term increasingly refers to all economic activity that depends on a person's individual creativity for its economic value, whether the result has a culture element or not. In its usage, the creative economy occurs wherever individual creativity is the main source of value and the main cause of a transaction. So if you weren't sure when you came here what the creative economy means, the great example that we use is when you go to the Broward Center of Performing Arts. So either you took an Uber or you parked your car with a parking attendant. Then there was an usher that helped guide you to your seat. Maybe there was, you bought some concessions at the concession stands, or you went out to eat the night before. There was a creative marketer or a designer that designed a flyer for the event. There was a marketer that helped market the event. Let alone the stagehands, the deckhands, the performers, the people in the play. All of these people play into the creative economy. So it's a much bigger picture. It's not like, oh, that's a pretty picture, ha ha ha. It's really, a lot of other pieces that go into it. So I'm glad that you guys mentioned that. Andrew, how has a cultural development like Fat Village or Mass District contributed to the creative economy? Because people often see the art walk, but they might not realize how creating this space for creatives has spurred new development, which will grow the city and ideally, attract new investment in jobs and development ideas.
Fat Village has been around for quite some time, and it's been kind of like the anchor for the arts. I think the city and the culture and the tourism board has certainly kind of used Fat Village as that kind of like beacon, showcasing kind of like the art here in Fort Lauderdale. It certainly created a space for artists to be able to create and showcase. Very similarly to a lot of the early places in Miami, like the Bake House and Locust Projects, where you can actually go see full-scale installations and exhibits from a number of different artists. We don't really have a ton of those venues here in the county. There's certainly a lot of great museums that showcase a lot of work from a variety among artists, but in terms of the scale at which Fat Village is able to exhibit, we really don't have that. The Fat Village Art Walk has been kind of like one of the leading art walks here in the county, and attracts probably about 4,000 people there a month. And as you can see where Fat Village is located, a lot of the building development is kind of happening all the way around it. So Flagler Village is developing around Fat Village as this arts and entertainment anchor. And if you go to Miami as a model, and Miami is still doing it, most of the development in Miami is happening around the arts areas. And now entities like, people like Moishe Mana and Alan Faina are essentially using arts as the basic start of their development. So Alan Faina bought 30 blocks on Miami Beach, and it's all art focused. Moishe Mana is actually developing areas with arts as a center. He's actually now moving the Miami University of Art and Design from their location in downtown to another location in Miami and developing around it. So it's a tried and true model. It's a great model for just simple mathematics, from moving your price per square foot from this dollar to this dollar. You can see it by ways of artists not being able to work out of Wynwood much anymore because they're being priced out. Back about 15 years ago, myself and 5 other artists could chip in $20-30 a person and get a warehouse and be there for a month and be able to work out of it. Now granted, the space we were working out weren't fantastic. I mean, you had to navigate the people on the street and all that stuff, but that was really the basic beginnings of the Wynwood area. And as they started to bring in more and more of these artists, more and more collectors started coming in, people started coming in money, and the development started coming in. So it's a tried and true model, not just for Miami, but all over the country where you see development. New York does it as a basic premise of their districts. So Soho, Chelsea, Meatpacking District, they're all based around the arts, whether it's food, fashion, music, or otherwise. So it's not like we're reinventing the wheel. What we do need to do, however, is be able to support spaces like Fat Village from a city and a private investment standpoint. That doesn't necessarily happen right now. And when you look at, I always kind of pull the example of Miami, and I'll briefly kind of give my thought on Miami's kind of like growth. Is short time ago, Miami just had the Boca Museum, the Mocha and the Bass. Miami's got about 13 museums now. Miami also has about 8 foundations that are all supporting the arts. The Knight Foundation just gave Miami $37 million supported towards the arts. The PAM Museum, that's owned by George Perez, who owns a related group, who is a major investor and philanthropist in Miami, also received $9 million from the Knight Foundation. And George Perez is a billionaire. So there is a ton of private investment in the arts in Miami that Broward County doesn't really have at all, in addition to the arts foundations and otherwise.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when you look at like spaces like Fat Village is existing without any of this, right? And so, I mean, at least for me, and seeing the development of Fat Village over the years, it's a really major thing for a person like Doug to stay committed to the arts for this extended period of time without any of the support that they have in Miami. And there's always a reference of the next Wynwood, and this could be like Wynwood and all these kind of things. But Wynwood didn't just happen because there was a space that allowed artists to collaborate and grow and create. It was also grown because there was a lot of private and foundation support that helped put it there. So it's a major conversation that we need to have as a county, that we're like lax of any of this. And Palm Beach also has a lot of private investment as well to the arts. So if we're hoping to get to that next stage, it's really going to be dependent on finding those people that are going to support the arts from a private standpoint, and also finding or developing those foundations that would do that as well. So that's just my thoughts on kind of like where we are and compared to other cities.
If I could just add one thing to that though.
It's your district.
It is my district. I told you it was the best district in the city. Now, Anna, don't tell Ben that I said that, okay? Thank you. The pioneering work that Doug did in Fat Village, as you probably do know, it has started to spread. We now have Mass District Music and Art south of Sunrise. I've seen some really cool little gallery spaces there, spoken to some artists there. They have some nice programming going on there. And I will tell you, the next hot spot, and get ready because it's coming, and there probably are some really good opportunities for the arts and culture community, is the Sistrunk corridor. There are some amazing things coming there in terms of turning a lot of the old rag shops and really run down buildings, warehouse buildings, into something very cool. So that's coming. So I would say to you, check that out, because as we mentioned here very briefly, the affordability of this is a very key issue. Now I will say that I'm very proud to serve with my colleagues. This is probably the first commission in a long time that's addressing the affordable housing crisis in our city. We are a very heavily rent-burdened community where people spend 30, 40, 50% of their income just on rent. That's not acceptable, and it's not sustainable. So as a city commission, we're very in tune to that. We've already put together some parcels for some affordable housing projects. More are coming. That's a very important part of the piece of the puzzle that the city can contribute to make sure that we are able to keep people here and people are not priced out.
Ran off a few other names that Andrew didn't mention. Does anybody know Walter Brayman? Brayman Automotive is one of the catalysts for helping bring Basel to Miami in the early days. Anybody know George Perez?
Yeah.
Right? PAM, related group. Anybody know Tony Goldman? Yeah. Moish Mana, Craig Robbins, Robinson Design District. His wife is Turnberry and down below. So does anybody have any question that their investment in the arts did not reap massive return on their investment to the tune of billions of dollars. It's rather unfortunate that we have not found a developer, aside from Doug, God bless him, that has decided to invest in the arts. The ROI is, I can't say it's a sure thing, but it's almost as good as investing in
That can make things happen, that can make, planning and zoning, you can have space for things that we need. We have space that's zoned appropriately, that we can have large retail spaces, art spaces, living spaces, multi-zoned, multi-use, I guess it's called, spaces. And so, remember that when, it comes time for those elections and you're talking about the art, you're talking about what's important to the people who are going to represent you and spend your tax dollars on things. It's very important to get those people in office that, are going to walk the walk. They're not going to talk about it, but they're going to walk the walk, and they're going to try and work for those dollars to help put the infrastructure in place to make the arts capabilities in Broward County locally, or the city, or in the county or state level.
and we're very glad to have.
So no, thank you. But there's a lot. There's Steve, and you're fantastic. But we've got some really great people that are very active in the arts that are elected, and you just got to keep reaching out to them and tell them how important it is to you. So
This is probably a good time to announce my re-election. Should I do that right now?
Yes.
Is this what this is leading up to?
Fatima?
Okay, right. I didn't know if that was my cue or not. I'm sorry.
You got my vote.
Go ahead.
Also, wouldn't want to go without saying, Mayor Trantalis, big supporter of the arts,
Right.
attended the art fair. How many of you are not familiar with Art Basel? Okay, that's it. Art Basel. Miami Art Week. Right, obviously if you're in this room, you're familiar with it. So is anybody uncertain that Art Basel and Miami Art Week has contributed to Miami being a world-class city? Is there any doubt, any question?
Zero.
Is there any question that Wynwood has helped contribute to Miami being a well-cultured, world-class community? Right? There's no question at all. So with the support of a Walter Bremen, of the George Perez, of the Tony Goldman, and the Craig Robbins, and that Fainas, right? They've been able to grow Art Basel over the last 18 years to the. We're inviting them. Don't you worry. The invitation's in the mail. But the point that I'd like to make, we're super transparent, so we're going to just tell you guys the truth. Are you guys familiar with Art Fort Lauderdale?
Yes.
Right? Art Fair on the Water. It's the only art fair in the world that's done in luxury waterfront homes that are for sale, mansions on the Intercoastal in Fort Lauderdale. That's only accessible via boat. Can't be duplicated anywhere else. Fort Lauderdale owns it. Andrew and I created it, and it's our baby. God bless my partner Andrew, and sorry to reiterate this, Francis. The first year of Art Fort Lauderdale, Andrew emptied out his piggy bank to the tune of $50,000 to self-fund the art fair, because if we were going to sit around and wait for a check, we'd be sitting around and waiting forever. Sorry, Francis. And then we've continued to self-fund the art fair. Andrew and I, between Art Fort Lauderdale Art Design Week, Choose 954, we're in about $500,000 invested in the arts over the last 3 years, and we are not independently wealthy guys, all right? But we knew that we had to make this investment in the arts to get these things off of the ground to fulfill our mission, which from day one was to put Fort Lauderdale on the map as an international destination to view and interact with art. And as evidenced by an article in Forbes, by an article in Architectural Digest, and CNN Travel, we're succeeding in our mission in doing so. If we had the littlest investment, the smallest support, can you imagine the things that we've been able to do with no money? We want to paint this picture to really, if anybody has a rich uncle, please let me know. So I really just wanted to draw that point home, and hopefully we can start getting some more investment and involvement.
And just to add on to that, kind of always go back to the attracting of retail in town. So, I thought it was important to make the investment because I didn't really see things happening in Broward County in moving in a positive direction where me as a small business owner with an ad agency and a creative marketing consultancy could really kind of flourish because I've been trying to have conversations with multinational, so the multinational agencies from around the world. I've had a couple of conversations with them. I've asked them about moving to Broward. They've been interested, but won't move unless there's a corporate office here of a brand that's established here that can find business up. So one hurdle is to try and have more corporate offices here. But how do you get the corporate offices here? You have to have this creative economy or this community of creative people. And in order to have that community of creative people, you need to have creative things or cultural things for these people to do. If those things don't happen, I could sit down and wish that my business could flourish and I could work on national accounts, and it won't happen. So it made sense to me to make the investment. Fortunately, I met Mr. Snow here that also believed in the idea, and also started, was really the catalyst for the Choose 954 movement that is, we have across the county. And I see my friend Linda from Brooke from Audacity. I've known Linda for about 20 something years. When I've been in, because I've been in the ad industry for a long time. And Linda owns a recording studio in Hollywood. And Linda's had this recording studio for 33 years and has worked on national accounts, and is probably one of the only businesses I know that's been in this industry for as long as it has been. And part of the conversation is always like, how do you maintain a business like this that's been around for that long? And the only way that we can maintain that business and more businesses to be created like that is that we do have to have a thriving cultural environment. And as evidenced by, I'm not saying everybody has to empty out their bank account, but I do think that showing up to artist events is important. Being able to kind of collaborate with more and more people in the industry is important. Being able to look at that collaboration not only by artist to artist, but it could be artist to musician or artist to interior designer or artist to radio person or artist. So any industry, whether it's literary arts, poetry, spoken word, whatever, I think those are really important collaborations to move things forward. So everything doesn't always need a lot of money. And maybe I can go a little bit into the zero empty spaces conversation.
We're going to get to zero empty spaces. But Jody, before we get on the next one, you want to add something?
I just wanted to add something on that note. So, he's talking about, infiltrating the cultural economy with tax and people who have money and things like that. But, we've also got fantastic Broward Cultural Division. And I want to introduce Phil, where'd you go? Oh, this is our new executive director, Phil Bella for the Broward Cultural Division. So, this is what I was saying. So I want to introduce you guys to Phil. No, it's okay. I just want to introduce him real quick, and I just wanted to say, our cultural division is challenged. Thank you, Phil. Challenged with, bringing arts and culture to Broward County, to the citizens, the residents, the tourists, all alike. And there are so many opportunities for people who are artistic in the arts for grant funding. And when you talk about, helping the creative economy build and grow, you need to seed it. So, we've got, if you go on browardcounty.org/arts, there are so many opportunities for artists, local artists, to get grant funding. There are grant fundings for individual artists, or for collaborations, there are for organizations, there are for fairs and festivals, there are for one-day only things and whatever. But it's really great for us to know there's so many great resources out there that Broward County's providing. And I think, and we've got a fantastic art in public places where we provide the art. You go to the airport or the port or whatever, you want people to come back here. So we provide fantastic art as soon as they get off the ship or off the airplane for those visitors that are coming. And we want them to come back. And you know where that art's coming from? Local artists like y'all.
And
so, it's really important.
Jim Shermer, God bless him, they're offering $180,000 to paint the Andrews Avenue Street Bridge with a mural.
So there's opportunities for local artists to do all sorts of things. You just have to look out there and see where it is, and it's fantastic. And the cultural division will take emails and phone calls and things. They'll answer. The city does the same thing. So there's really fantastic collaborations out there for local artists to help seed that economy.
Great segue into Jody. And you're a phenomenal example of this, what can a person or a business that's not been involved in the creative economy or arts do to contribute to the growth of the creative economy?
So I'm going to give myself a little bit here. So my husband and I opened a business about 4 years ago, and it was an investment business. Los Angeles Capital Advisors, and I thought, if I ever owned my own walls, what would I do? And I've been on the Cultural Council for about 8 years. and I'm the chair for 2 years now, and I'm thinking, what can I do that could support the arts, with what I have. I don't have a lot of money to give to the arts, but I certainly can do my part. So what I did is I created Los Ols Capital Arts, and that is a not-for-profit. This is real simple to do, and I think, I created kind of a model that, for my own sake, and I've shared it with a lot of people. A lot of businesses do this, but it's a business. You have your walls. You have local artists. So what I do is I have kind of a pot of beautiful artists that, visual artists, whatever, and I choose one artist. And the way I choose an artist is not based on what their art is, what I like in art, what masses like or whatever. It's all about the art, a local and emerging artist, and also one that's giving back to the community in their own way to make the world a better place. So I have a couple things they have to check those boxes. So for 4 months at a time, I put their art on our walls. We do the social media, we do the marketing. So month 1 is just installation, talking it up, putting it on Instagram, social media marketing like y'all do on a daily basis. Second month, we have a fantastic reception, which, about 80 to 150 people show up. And those people are all either artists, don't know about the art, they're new people, where we had all sorts of people reaching out, the artists included, because a lot of the artists don't really market themselves as much. Sometimes you need to be your own biggest cheerleader. So we're trying to help people promote themselves a little bit more and stronger. And then if anyone buys any of the art, they get 100% of the proceeds. We're not taking anything. I'm not selling art. I'm just supporting local economy and a local creative artist. So, and then for the other 2 months, they can have private showings in our office. But you know what? What this has done is created, new people to come see the art. It's created an opportunity for the artists to learn a little bit more about how to promote themselves, to make their passion an ultimate business, to support themselves for the rest of your life. So I think it's working. It's tried and true. I'm on my 11th artist now. This artist, Tony Sato, we got an exhibit coming up on the 20th this month. You can go to losolscapitalarts.com and RSVP. But this is not just, it's not hard to do. Anyone can do this. You all know someone who's got a business. Say, you know what, I've got an artist friend. I'm an artist, or my next door neighbor's an artist. What do you think about putting some of his art up on your wall just for a couple of months or something in a business? So I think it's really easy to do. I'm always willing to talk about it, to tell someone how to do it, because it really doesn't take that much money. It takes a little time, but it's really good and it's successful. And that's exactly what any one of us can do, because we maybe don't have our own walls, but we know someone who does.
Along those lines, how many are aware that at City Hall lobby every month we do a different artist program, and we bring in a different artist every month for an entire month, and we do a reception, and we do that now. So that's another opportunity very similar to that. A lot of people pass through the lobby of City Hall. I would encourage you to check out that program with our neighbor support group. Try to get on that list, and it's really, I love it. I love seeing change every month. I also wanted to touch upon something that Andrew mentioned in terms of economic development. Again, with that outside the box thinking, we need to hook up artists and the arts community with our folks like at the Broward Alliance, people that are really in charge of bringing economic development to our county. Actually, our city now, one of our commission goals is also to beef up our own economic development efforts to bring in those kinds of corporations and businesses that we think will make it a much better place. Right now, our mayor, city managers, and people from the county are on a trade mission in Israel right now, basically looking at a whole range of possibilities in partnership with that country for economic development. And those are the kinds of things that we have to continue to do. But don't be afraid to reach out to the Broward Alliance, the Broward Workshop, the city's own economic development department. We have an economic development advisory board. So those are also connections that I think that we can make going forward.
And while we're in Fort Lauderdale, I'm a Broward native. You guys are all here in Broward County. There's actually a lot of great initiatives all throughout Broward County, from the initiatives in Pembroke Pines with the Frank, to initiatives with Coral Springs, with the museum, with their new city hall, with all over downtown Hollywood Bureau Project in Hollywood. Oakland Park's really come a long way. So there are things all throughout Broward County, regardless of where you live, ways you can get involved with the arts or open your doors to be involved with the arts. Andrew, what does it mean to be part of the creative class today in our city?
I think a big part of it, obviously I think I'm involved in that demographic. I think, obviously local artists, people in advertising, marketing, radio, design are all part of that community. But we don't have a ton of places for these people to gather, however. So, it's very fragmented. Fortunately, there are entities like So Far Sounds that does some stuff with the music community down here locally, but we don't have a lot of live music venues. So Far Sounds is really great because it pops up in just unusual places that we get to showcase live music. But a key to that is that we've tried to have relationships with people that are in every part of the creative community. So it's not just visual artists or it's not just musicians. So I think that's really key to be able to, as we don't really have locations for these groups to gather, that we do try to partner and seek out the entities or the people that are leading the initiatives in these various genres pretty much across the county.
And I'm going to do the last question before we open up for question and answer. Commissioner Glassman, how can we highlight our cultural assets to attract and retain talent? We have our art walk tours that we're leading. The Hollywood Art Walk, Fort Lauderdale Art Walk are great examples. But what are some ways that we can really show and highlight our cultural assets to the city?
It's a good point. When we did have our goal-setting workshop this year, the commission talked about that we don't do a good enough job telling our story. We don't have an official city brochure that highlights this is what the city has, this is what the city does. We do rely on and we work closely with, for instance, Riverwalk Magazine does a good job, I think, of highlighting the arts in the city. We also have Las Olas Magazine. There are several local publications that do a nice job, I think, of highlighting what's going on. Fort Lauderdale Magazine, Las Olas Magazine, Venice Magazine. These are the magazines that locally seem to pick up the slack. I would love to see the city be able to do more, obviously not just on our own website, but we talk about even when folks from the Fort Lauderdale go to other cities, whether it's a conference, convention, whatever, we don't have like a takeaway. We don't have something that we can leave, no collateral materials. So we can do a better job of it. But as I said, even just the conversations that we have, a lot of people watch the city commission meetings, we talk about it, we have the television station. So I think these are the things that we can do, just constantly discussing it.
One, to piggyback off that point, when we leave, what can we export? Well, we're not exporting the sand. Sand's going to stay here. But one of the things we can export is our local artists' work and creativity. I'm very, very glad and excited to be working with Russell Weaver and the Greater Fort Lauderdale Sister Cities Initiative, which has 17 sister cities throughout the world that have municipal arrangements to advance cultural, economic, conservation ties. One of our sister cities is Venice, Italy. We're the Venice of the Americas. And I was fortunate enough to just go to the Venice Biennale, the longest running art fair in the world, where I started a pilot program where we're going to bring our artists over to Venice to live, work, learn, create, explore, and get these culturally enriching experiences and the relationships that we've established through personal relationships or through the sister cities. We're going to work to bring artists from Venice and Italy and our other sister cities over to Fort Lauderdale. Thankfully, we have a world-class art fair where we can showcase their work, and everyone always says, what's going to be new with Art Fort Lauderdale? What's the next evolution? Well, one of the things that we're going to look to evolve on, Andrew, you want to mention about concepts?
Yeah, so, part of, the impetus for Art Fort Lauderdale and the way it was created, the idea was we wanted to create something that didn't exist somewhere else. So we won't get compared to Art Basel that's been around for the 18 years, or Art Miami that's been around for 30 years, or Art Palm Beach that's been around for 20 years. So how do we start an art fair when our neighbors to the south and north are 20 and 30 years ahead of us? And the idea to do that was to create something that was completely different, so it'd be really hard to compare things. So Miami and Art Basel Miami has a really big grouping of shows that exhibit a lot of artists that, you know, the galleries know are going to sell and are very popular because of the cost of getting into any of these shows. So the galleries kind of bring the tried and true artists. So there's not a ton of discovery going on at Basel. And what we've decided to do, and trying to differentiate ourselves yet again, is start working with consulates to bring like the top contemporary artists from places like Norway or Japan or Taiwan or Venice, and bring them over into Fort Lauderdale to also exhibit with our local artists here, so that we kind of become, I would say, like a bigger destination to discover not just local artists, but international artists that are at the top of their game in their respective countries, but may not get major exposure even in fairs like Art Basel or Art Miami, just based on maybe not getting representation or not having representation there. So that's kind of like our next evolution of you know, Art for Lauderdale and how we're working with some of these groups.
I think you were going to do a reciprocal kind of thing too, sending an artist,
Yeah,
some
so,
local artist.
and for those of you that, thank you very much, Mrs. Tanner. For those of you that aren't familiar, have you guys heard of our latest initiative? It's called Zero Empty Spaces.
Yeah, right.
No.
So there's two of the issues that are affecting all cities. One, there's a shortage of safe, affordable artist studio spaces for artists to create. Two, there is an amount, small, large, or otherwise, of vacant commercial, retail, warehouse space that's either tied up in a buy and hold, it's tied up in the permitting process, it's just tied up being vacant, or whatever the case may be. So we use art as a problem solver. We reached out to Mayor Dean Trentellis, who's a big supporter of ours and support of the arts, said, hey Mayor, we have this idea, we want to activate vacant space, what do you think? He said, it's a good idea, reach out to Mike Weymouth, head of Las Olas. I thought he was kidding, but he wasn't, and Mike Weymouth fortunately agreed and has given us our first space on Las Olas, which we're about to sign our first 3 artists to tomorrow. One of them's here. And we're able to make safe, affordable artist studio spaces available for at or below $2 per square foot, inclusive of the water, electricity, and insurance. We're also, because we market and support the arts, we're going to market it, we're going to program it, we're going to have artist studio tours, we're going to have new art walks, we're going to have workshops, installations, and all of these other things, and it's going to be a really great program for Fort Lauderdale. There is potential to have our international artist exchanges and potentially bring artists to work in the space and create in the space and have that work then go into Art Fort Lauderdale, and we have that ability to do so. So if you know an artist that's looking for safe, affordable artist studio spaces, then go to zeroemptyspaces.com. There's an application. We're working with the city of Oakland Park, Hollywood, Dania, Pompano, Fort Lauderdale, and a few other cities to get more spaces online. And we're glad to work with any commercial real estate owner or developer that has vacant space available. I cannot tell you how many times developers have asked Andrew and I to meet and says, man, I got this space. What kind of idea do you got? They have no idea. They have no idea, and a lot of those spaces, I can tell you, are still vacant to this day, and it's not doing anybody any good. It's not helping put feet in the street. It's another blighted, vacant space. So once again, we use art as a problem solver, and we're very, very, very excited with this project. We didn't intend for the first space to be on Las Olas. We thought we were going to get some warehouses. We thought we were going to get some blighted buildings, which artists love to create in, but we're very glad to start off here.
I will say to that, I mean, part of this idea, I mean, apart from finding reasonably priced spaces for us to work out of, I mean, as many people probably know, a lot of the artists, a lot of artists again priced out of Wynwood, then move into Little Haiti, again priced out of Little Haiti, and then moving and then moving and then moving. And you know, apart from the Bake House and Fountainhead, there's not a lot of you know rent control spaces for artists in South Florida. And Fountainhead, what? And Studio 18, correct. but all these places are nonprofits, right? And so that's how they're able to subsidize the space. But with the plethora of vacant space across Broward County, there's a huge opportunity for artists to be able to get into space on a month-to-month basis. So I don't know if you mentioned that, but it's on a 30-day basis. So the 30-day increment allows the landlord or the owner of the property to be able to still have some control if the space gets leased, but still lets us take the space for that period of time. But on a bigger picture, bigger vision standpoint, is if we could establish Broward County as a county and one of the few counties in the country that can provide low rent space for artists to work out of, we will be able to kind of change the entire dynamic without necessarily needing I shouldn't say without needing a private investment, but in lieu of not getting that, it could provide us with a space, not just in Fort Lauderdale, but throughout the county, for people across the country to say, hey, Fort Lauderdale is a great space for me to work out of, that I can move down to, which would then kind of like tie back into the creative economy conversation, attracting and retaining talent. And we're already getting like collectives out of Miami that are doing incredible things, wanting to move to Broward County because this opportunity exists. So it's just really a matter of like thinking about things a little bit differently. It's also a matter of having relationships with artists and being able to hear their issues on a daily basis, be able to create incredible friendships with these artists as well, and then also be able to connect that with the business community. And I would be like full transparency, the business community does not really support the arts in Broward County. There's little to none of that happening, and that's just a fact. And there may be a ton of arts organizations that there's boards and people sit on the, but in terms of like creating some real tangible movement for the arts in the county, it doesn't exist. And we can continue to say there are many things, and we can talk about economic development and all these different things, but economic development is absolutely and directly tied towards a thriving cultural environment. And if we don't have it, we can spin around many, many times and expect that we're gonna grow, but it's just not gonna happen. And tourism's a big part of it, and the tourism industry is a big part of our economy. But from a tourism industry standpoint, what do we have? We have the beach. There's many places with a beach. We have a wonderful one, but we do have incredible artists here that are local, that are doing some incredible things that, if they were to be able to have more places to create, would be a much more thriving environment. And then the marine industry, which is where we put most of our concentration on, is an industry that, is developed based on, obviously, the boat show. You have manufacturing, and you have a lot of repair that happens here in Broward County. But there's not a lot of innovative things happening within that. But the creative economy, again, for artists and other people in the creative environment, could also work towards innovating that industry. So just kind of like look at the bigger picture. Of course, like we're looking at for different ways to move the needle forward without having to rely on other entities. But I would certainly kind of press to everybody to encourage the business community to make investments into the arts, because we do say all the time that rising tides raise all ships, which is why I made my investment. And it is a real thing. And we've seen slow growth in the conversation, but we still haven't really seen much support from this community in the arts. So I'll leave you with that.
So I just wanted to respond a little bit. You know what? All this is good news. We have a great arts community. We're all here. We're all trying to do our best to grow it and to nurture it. And we've got some fantastic development coming your way to Broward County that's going to have more artists and residency spaces. You guys just keep on the look for that. And most importantly is we have to support each other. We have to look at the events that are going on. There's a BrowardArts.com arts calendar. It's got things happening all over Broward County. These guys post and push out things every single day. There's never nothing going on in Broward County. The city of Fort Lauderdale, our fantastic Broward County, our state, whatever. But you know what? Ultimately, the bottom line is we have to support each other, and we have to talk about it out loud. We have to push the arts to everyone we know and share our enthusiasm, because people are enthused, they just don't know how to help. So you know what? Start the conversation.
And I would also say share the information, because like that's great, Russell, and the Sister Cities program, what you're talking about with the cultural, the arts exchanges, zero empty spaces, that's great. Newsletters of information every month. The city has a public information officer. We pump out information all the time. So get me that information, get me releases. I'll be happy to talk about it all the time. So in print, and we send it out to thousands of people. So let us get the word out.
And if you guys have any initiatives, how many of you get to choose 954 newsletter? That's good. I do a newsletter once a week. It's not spammy, I promise. It's the top 10 or 12 things going on within Broward County. It's free. If you have an event, give it to me. I'll get it out there. Before we get into question and answer, in the last couple of years, the dialogue has been very, very encouraging and enriching. So I encourage you to stay for that. I do want to give a big shout out and thank you to Mike Hewitt of Lime Digital Media. Mike is our videographer for tonight. He's also our videographer for Creative Zen. How many of you have been to Creative Zen by a show of hands? Hey. We host the monthly breakfast lecture series. It's a mini TED Talk that we host for free for the creative community. It's a way to connect and engage and inspire our creative community. One Friday morning a month, the second Friday morning of every month. We provide breakfast bites, coffee, before a thought-provoking, inspiring talk. We bring in a entrepreneur, a Zen yoga master, an artist, a creative. This month, we're very excited to bring in, and we take it to a different venue every month. So a creative workspace, coffee shop. This month happens to be at the New River Artists Cooperative inside of the History Fort Lauderdale Museum in downtown Fort Lauderdale. We just did a podcast there today to highlight and promote it. And we have a Broward native, former NFL player, assistant principal, father, fantastic human being, spoken word poet, artist, host, Jarrett's Quick the Poet Evans, who's very proud to be from Broward County. One of the most incredible speakers I've ever had the pleasure of being in the room with is speaking this month. So it's this Friday, June 14th. Doors open at 8:30, talk starts at 9, you're out of there by 10. AAF Creative Zen. Mike helps us make the videos look great every month. So I want to thank Mike for that and being here tonight as well. You guys have an event, you need something covered, I couldn't put you in better hands. I also want to give a moment, we want to thank Pipeline Workspaces for hosting us. It's the third year we're doing it. Hopefully we don't outgrow this space. Ben, you want to tell us a quick little minute or two about Pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi everyone. My name is Benjamin. I run this co-working space. I'm the community manager here alongside the general manager, Tiffany Murphy. And we, keep this place going, we keep it alive. We bring in new members. People come and people go, but most people stay because they love it here. And we made a big investment in art and to create a creative space. It's really helped, and it really brings out the vibrancy in people's lives and in their work. So that's something that we've introduced into our workspaces. We got 7 different locations in Florida, which makes us the most prominent workspace in Florida. For now, we'll see what happens, but we're growing, and right now we're leaders in this market in Florida.
And how low can they get into a workspace here for?
For as low as $99. You just need an address to put on your website or just somewhere to come collect your mail. So,
How about dropping your laptop? How much would a workspace cost?
like $200 to $300 to have a place to come and work. Just bring your laptop, take it home at the end of the day. We've got Wi-Fi, coffee, tea, everything you need. But the best part is the community. So what we've done here to really make this place shine so bright is created and fostered a community that keeps our customers coming back. And we host events like this for our members, but also things that are more intimate so that they can create connections. So one thing I want to add is that if you can create connections and create community, that's an even way to enhance the arts community as well. So we do that in a business.
And this place serves a great purpose because for most creative entrepreneurs, they can't afford to sign a 5 or 10 year lease at $1,500 a month, $3,000 a month that you can afford to be here for $250 a month. Also, a great example of the creative community. This is actually Ben's artwork here. So Ben is a local artist, muralist as well, and Ben, as an artist, has to work to pay the bills. So takes a lot of pride in his work, and he does a lot of different things. Coaches youth lacrosse as well. Phenomenal guy, good friend of ours. So we really appreciate you hosting us. If you have any questions about the space, you can feel free to talk with Ben after that as well.
Exactly. I know a lot of people might want to roam around, but please just consult me before you enter the hallways or anything like that. So I do want to touch on some more about the membership options. We do have offices starting at $649, which is great. So if you're interested, please come up to me. Yeah, exactly. And then I have cards at my table. Feel free to just grab one and then give me a call. So like I said, we mix community and business, and in the art scene out here, they mix community and art, which helps grow and facilitate connections. Events that are over at Mass District, Flagler Village, Wynwood, that's what's bringing people out to go having fun, and then they're introduced to all these different artists, and it really grows that creative economy. I would push events if it was me that made the decisions. But I want to say one thing about me. I'm from a small town, and Andrew touched on this. A lot of artists are moving here for this art scene. I'm one of them. I moved from a small town in Saratoga Springs, New York. I saw Wynwood once, and I was like, okay, I'm going to move here, honestly. And then I found Fort Lauderdale, which had 2 great art districts and a lot of stuff going on. It seemed like a place where I could really build my art career. So, and I could always go to Wynwood whenever I want. So I chose to move to Fort Lauderdale, and I'm very active in the Mass District and Flagler Village art scene, and I do a lot for the community here, and I love it in Fort Lauderdale, and I hope it keeps growing. So,
And you choose 954.
Yeah, and I support Evan.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And thank you so much to Evan for bringing everyone here to come see the space and to come listen to this panel discussion, and everyone here, just amazing talks. I loved it. I learned a lot, and I hope you guys
Thank you
did
for
too.
hosting us.